Hello, everybody. And today I want to talk about what kind of shrimp keeper are you? Now, I'm not saying one way is better than the other. In fact, I am all three of the things I'm about to talk about today. I love shrimp and I love all aspects to it. So I keep them always. Now, what is important is before you start a new shrimp tank, you want to go into it with the goals that you have, and this will make your life a lot easier. So what I want to touch upon is the different ways we can keep our shrimp tanks. There's always natural, whatever happens. Then you want to keep a nice line. And then you have your hardcore breeders. So let's dig into the different kinds of shrimp keepers. So let's start off with the first way of keeping shrimp, and that is the natural way. Whatever happens, happens. Either you're growing, the main purpose of the tank is to grow plants. In this case, this is my jungle val farm, but I'm also having a fun little experiment here where I threw in a whole bunch of reds with a few of my old yellow line, and then I started throwing in blue jellies to try to make some red rillies, and from that I started getting red rillies popping up, and from that I started my own red rilly line. But you can see there's still hints of yellows. Most of the wild looking type ones have at least some kind of yellow. And you got the blue jellies. But all in all, my point in this tank is just to have fun with the shrimp and see what happens. That's one of my favorite things to do, is mix them up and seeing what happens. Now, it's important when you do that, it's important to realize that these shrimp are no longer good for lines. When you mix the colors together, you're not going to get a line out of it. But the main thing you want to keep in mind when you go to set up a new shrimp tank is, if I'm going to have plants, if I'm going to have a jungle, if I have plants that are permanently in here, rooted in, stuff like jungle val, where it's just going to spread and grow, it's going to make culling shrimp really hard. So if you want to have a really nice shrimp tank that you want to stay on top of culling, then you really need to think about your plant choices and the way you set the tank up, or you're not going to be able to get in there and get all the shrimp out. So this tank has never been reset. It just runs forever because it's a plant farm, and the shrimp are in here just for me to enjoy and to see what happens. And I sure do like it. This is my Skittles tank, and this is another example of just throwing shrimp in, wanting the plants and tank to be natural, because I'm not worried about culling for certain traits. So I just put them all in here, and whatever happens, happens. And I enjoy this aspect of shrimp keeping, because before I got into being a shrimp breeder, I've been into planted tanks for 20 years. So having a nice natural planted environment is one of the best ways to enjoy keeping shrimp. But it makes the breeding aspect of it hard, because how are you going to cull shrimp out when you got all kinds of plants and stuff, and plants rooted in, stuff like that. Again, this tank is never reset or torn apart. Shrimp are just in here to do their thing, live their lives. And then I have tanks like this. These are what I call line tanks, or a line breeder. You just want to have a nice consistent shrimp in your tank. So you can have some plants, even some rooted stem plants. You can have moss, but there's going to come a point in time where if you fall behind on culling, you're really going to have to rip everything out. But if you stay on top of it, just pull out the bad ones, because no matter how good of a shrimp line you have, you're always going to have some oddballs that get spit out. And so if you want to keep the shrimp looking good, you've got to pull out the oddballs. And when you just pull out the bad ones, you are maintaining. So that's why I call a line breeder. You're just getting into it. You want to have nice shrimp. You can have some natural stuff going on. And these are my main lines. These kind of tanks are my main lines. The tanks like this. There's some Bloody Marys. Look at all those blue dreams in the moss there. Lots of tanks like this. The goal with these tanks is to maintain what you already have. And you can do that just by pulling out the bad ones as you see them. Eventually you might need to, like I said, pull it out. If you start letting it go too long, then you have to pull a bunch of stuff out and get everything back in order. But as long as you stay on top of it, this way it works at maintaining. Just pulling out the old balls when you see them. And when you start getting thousands and thousands of shrimp like this, you're gonna pick out a few bad ones. So what I like to do is every night I make my rounds and with a shrimp net and try to get a handful out of each tank. And then you have your hardcore shrimp breeder. Now the sole purpose of these tanks is to improve the shrimp you already have. So if you're just pulling out the oddballs, you're not really making them better. You're just keeping them the same. Now to make them better, my favorite way is to pull the tank completely out, restart the whole tank, and you're only keeping the very, very best few. And you do that over and over and over again. And over the course of years, you will eventually get better and better and better shrimp. In my opinion, that is the best way to up your lines to make them better. And in these type of tanks, you'll see there's nothing rooted in. The tanks are smaller than a great big 40-gallon or 75-gallon tank. I use 20 longs. And then the only purpose of this tank is to make a bunch of shrimp, keep only the best ones, and make a bunch of shrimp, keep only the best ones. And eventually, they will get better and better. You just get the oddballs here and there, as long as you don't let them get more than a couple generations deep before you reset it. You just keep getting better and better shrimp. And so, this is when I say I am partially all three of these. I love natural shrimp tanks. Just letting the shrimp go, even mixing colors and seeing what happens and doing stuff like that. I love doing that, and that serves a perfect purpose for some of my tanks where I'm plant farms and I just want to play with shrimp, or a Skittles tank. I got to put my lesser shrimp somewhere, because when you hear about calling shrimp, most people they're not killing them. They're putting them in a separate tank that's specially designed, and its sole purpose is to put the lesser shrimp in. So for me, my project tanks are my research and development. These are where I am trying to make the shrimp better and better and better for future projects. So when I start new tanks of these lines, they will be with the shrimp from my project tank. So if there's something in a line I'm trying to get rid of, I'm just trying to get better, this is when I talk about project tanks. And these are my hardcore improving shrimp, only making the very, very best. And then you have the line tanks, where these tanks have been started with my best of the best projects. And then in order to maintain them, I pull out the bad shrimp. So that's how I'm a line breeder as well as a hardcore shrimp breeder. The hardcore shrimp look at all these baby longfin green dragons in here with the Bloody Marys. I like them a lot. And then as the shrimp pass through all the various filters that I've set in stone for quality standards and for each tank, and if a shrimp falls below a certain threshold, it's got to come out. And then they come to live in my natural tanks where shrimp can just be natural and do their thing in a natural planted tank. So I know the reason I want to talk about this and bring up these points is because when I first started out, I wanted to have the perfect tank and the perfect shrimp. Well, you got to make sacrifices to maintain the shrimp. You can't have a perfectly huge aquascape, intricate rock work, intricate plants. Unless you want to tear it all down from time to time, you got to be able to see the shrimp. So if you want to maintain, you got to make sacrifices. So in my line tanks, I have plants and stuff, but it's just they're easy to pull out. So if I need to rip them all out and get through the shrimp, sort through the shrimp real good, then that's not hard to do. But if I wanted to tear this tank down, my jungle valve farm, I've been growing for years and years in this tank without tearing the tank down the whole time. But I like it growing plants like this. But it wouldn't be good to try to to have a shrimp line that you wanted the best shrimp, because look at that. How the heck you gonna call shrimp to go in there? I mean, that's literally a jungle of jungle val. You're not gonna be able to do it. So it makes sense to make the tanks you're trying for the best shrimp more accessible. All this tank is moss. There's nothing rooted in, just a tiny thin layer of substrate. So when the time comes to reset this tank out, I rip all the moss out, no problems. I'm not ripping up any roots or making a huge mess. I'm just pulling it out, and then I can sort through the shrimp. So it's minimalist, even though this moss has grown to be quite the jungle. Still minimalist, just moss. It's not rooted in or nothing. You just pull the moss out, sort the shrimp. Makes life so much easier. So in closing, like I said, there's no right way. There's no wrong way. It's what do you want to do? What do you enjoy most about the shrimp keeping hobby? Now, you may start off one way and go for something else. Or if you're in it long enough, you'll end up like me and do all three. Now, if you have a bunch of the shrimp tanks, and this is what you'll end up doing is all three like I do, where you want to make the lines you got better. You want to have produce lots in tanks where you're maintaining what you worked years to get to. And then you need somewhere to put the shrimp that don't match up, that don't measure up. And those can go in your natural planted tanks where they can enjoy their lives and do their shrimpy thing without being uprooted or anything. So it's important to realize that when I talk about calling shrimp, and most shrimp breeders, no one's killing their shrimp. They're just coming to live in my little natural paradises, or it doesn't matter how they look. And they can enjoy their shrimp lives. So, like I said, most people are probably a mixture of two. The people who are really hardcore into it probably have all three styles of tanks going. So it's good to remember these things. I wish I had known it when I first started out. I wish someone said, hey, you're going for the best shrimp. Don't put a bunch of crips and jungle val and stuff like that in there, because it's going to make your life really difficult, and it's going to be impossible to maintain the shrimp properly, to maintain the lines. So now, if you watch this video, you can't say, nobody ever told me that. It's something I wish I had known when I started out. Now I'm telling you. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.